Alright, here's part 2 of the Blue Lady of Hilton Head. When Caroline awoke, she had no idea how long she had slept. Outdoors, there was no sound of wind or rain. All was quiet. She decided she would go outside and see how much damage had been done by the storm. The inside of the tower was dark as pitch, but she felt her way down. By counting the rungs, she knew when she was almost at the bottom. She had reached the last dozen steps when her outstretched foot plunged down into water. Yeah, I hate that too. It'd be like stepping in the wrong spot and then like slip, fall, plummeted. She drew it back hastily, retreated a few steps, and sat down into darkness to think. The water was at least 2 feet deep. Whoa! Man, if it was like over 6 feet, I'd be like, no. She realized with horror that this meant the water on the island was at least 4 feet deep. Good lordy, and possibly more. What had happened to the cattle and pigs, her own dog Frisky, and to the people, the girl shuddered. How long would it be before she could get her father home, now that the storm was past? It would be dangerous for him to try to walk to the house through water this high. Somehow, she must summon a doctor. As she sat there thinking, she heard the wind pick outside. Rain pummeled the metal lighthouse again. The full fury of the storm had returned. Numbed by her predicament, she continued to sit on the stair. Suddenly, she was shocked to feel water slush over her toes. In less than an hour, it had risen almost a foot. She lifted her skirt, and the sopping wet hem dripped water on her leg. Panic-stricken, she went back up the stairs and sat near her father. He appeared to be still asleep. Morbid thoughts went through her mind and frightening prayers. Again, she fell asleep. When she awoke, it was daylight. The storm had passed and the sky was clear. Caroline looked out one of the broken windows and gasped. "Father," she cried out, "the island is covered with water." Then she remembered that he was still asleep and she must not frighten him. I'll be scared to be on an island full of water and be like, how am I going to get out? I can't swim anyway. "I'm not surprised, Caroline," said her father. He attempted to rise. Caroline's strong young arm half lifted, half steadied him. "I'm all right," he said, protesting her help. "You're not all right. We need to get a doctor at once. And where are you planning to get him? From the mainland? I'll send over there for one." "Look at the water. It will be 2 or 3 days before any help arrives from the mainland." 2 or 3 days? At least that. "Papa, do you see that empty lifeboat floating by?" "Yes. And over there is someone's house lodged against the tree. But the roof is torn off." "Whatever happened to the people?" Her father didn't answer. "Have you looked at our house?" he asked. Caroline went quickly to one of the 2 remaining windows. "It's there. Thank heaven. Papa, we must try to get home at once. You must go ahead, Caroline. I'll come as soon as I get the light cleaned for tonight. Then I'll help and we'll go together." She slipped the linen apron on over her blue dress and worked quickly, replacing the wet wick. She noticed that her father's fingers trembled. How would he manage on the stairs? But he did, holding on to the rail as he went. Caroline was close at his side, and as they slowly descended the steps, she wondered how high the water would be in the bottom of the tower, unless it had gone down considerably. She was uncertain whether her father would be able to walk to the house. But they started out, his arm over her shoulder and hers about his waist. Now and then he would stop and lean against the rail of the circular metal stairs, for his breath was short. At the bottom of the lighthouse, he struggled to open the door, and between the two of them, they were able to swing it slowly open through the water. It was tiring to walk in the water, and soon Caroline found that her father was leaning up her heavily. "Are you all right, Papa?" "Yes, Caroline." But even as he spoke, pain ripped across his face, and she felt the weight of his body almost more than she could stand up under. "My legs feel so heavy." "I don't know why, daughter. I don't know." But now her father was staggering slightly. They were about halfway to the house. "Let's stand here a moment and rest," said Caroline. "No, better that I go on now." His face was gray, but he continued to plow steadily through the water. "What if he falls through, Caroline?" Her arm aching. Her leg struck something sharp and hard, and it hurt so that she cried out, "Caroline, what's the matter?" She reached down in the water and pulled up a child's rocker lying just beneath the surface. But where was the child? She heard her father groan, and when she looked at his face, she knew he was suffering a heart attack. "That's right, you need to get him out of the water quick." Anyway, he could scarcely stand. With almost superhuman strength, Caroline waded on through the water, urging him along, and somehow he was able to remain on his feet. When they were just a short distance from the house, she circled his chest with her arms, locked her fingers together, and managed to inch back toward the porch a little at a time. He was about to sink down into the water, and she knew if he did, she would never be able to lift him out. There was the sound of cloth ripping. Her father had grasped the skirt of her blue dress in his hand to keep from sliding below the surface of the water. She had almost reached the porch. As she moved her right foot behind her, she felt something firm yet oddly yielding. A horrible thought crossed her mind. It might be a corpse. Then she felt the edge of the porch hard against her back, and turning, she was able to push the upper part of her father's body over it. After he rested, he was able to pull himself up with Caroline's help. The effort so exhausted him that he wanted to rest there, and she covered him with a blanket. All was quiet, and it seemed forever before she saw any sign of life. Finally, the island fisherman, Donald Stewart, appeared in a small dinghy, and Caroline called to him. Together, they lifted her father into his bed. "Mr. Stewart, could you get a doctor?" He gestured to the boat, half filled with water. He had been damaged by the storm and was leaking badly. "I know your father's mighty sick, but I've got to keep looking for my two other children. Maybe somewhere they're alive. My wife and baby drowned last night." Oh, hate to hear anybody's child or wife drowning or dying terribly like that. And Stuart went on his way, the dingy, low in water. Caroline folded the blanket into a pallet beside her father's bed, and after changing the blue dress for dry clothes, she slept a troubled sleep filled with nightmares of the house being swept out to sea, struggling to save her father, while all around them in the water people were crying out for help. It was late afternoon when she felt the rays of the sun warm up her face through the window and awakened. How very quiet everything was. She realized that Sister told her she had not heard a bird sing. "Okay. Papa, have you seen a bird?" For a moment there was no reply, and then he answered weakly, "They have all been blown away, killed by the storm." "No, but it was a mighty wind. It probably blew them inland. They will be back in a few days." His voice was very weak. Caroline built a fire in the wood stove and heated some broth for her father. but he wasn't able to drink more than a few mouthfuls. You must go over, light the lamp, and keep it in my place tonight, Caroline. She nodded. The last rays of the sun shone in through the window upon her father's face. He turned his head away and fell asleep. All right, people. Last 2 pages, so let's get through this real quick. All right. She trudged to the tower through the water that had gone down until it was just below her knees. There was no breeze, and after she lighted the lamp, she decided it was unlikely to go out and that she would go back to the house to be with her father. Near the steps of the lighthouse, she saw something yellow in the water. Reached down to tug at it, found that it was a doll still clutched by the fingers of a dead child. Ooh! I'll be scared to death seeing that sight, but anyway. For a moment she thought she would faint, but she recovered herself. When she went back in her father's bedroom, he was lying on his side in the same position he had been when she left. She called, but there was no answer. Then she turned his face toward her and looked down at him. Adam Fripp was dead, and the daughter who loved him more than anyone else in the world began to sob uncontrollably. But there was no one to hear and no one to comfort her. The next morning, Stuart was at the door. He had noticed that the light in the lighthouse was out. Stuart and the 2 other islanders returned a few hours later with a wooden sea chest. They weighted it, took it into the ocean, and left it far out beyond the low water mark. Die by water, lie by water, Stuart had said as they lowered the chest over the side. One of the women tried to get Caroline to come home with her, but she refused to leave the house. Sometimes at night she was seen walking between her home and the lighthouse, calling her father. She always seemed to be wearing the long blue dress she had worn on the night of the hurricane. The dress torn and bedraggled, it was soon apparent she would not survive the shock of the storm, and tragedies followed it. A few weeks later, Caroline died. Oh, that's so sad. Many a year has passed, but now and then on the wild and stormy nights, a girl is seen in one of the lighthouse windows or at the foot of it. The folds of her flowing blue dress are sculptured by the wind as she walks near the rusted old tower, weeping and wringing her hands. A young policewoman who patrols this part of the island says sometimes she isn't heard from for years, and then the story surfaces again. The Blue Lady is reported most often during hurricane season, and I've talked with people who swear that they've seen her. Others say they've heard the sound of a woman sobbing not far from where the keeper's house once stood. I only know that I wouldn't go near that old lighthouse on windy, rainy days. I felt bad she lost her father, and then she pretty much sobbed herself to brokenheartedness. Anyway, that's going to be it for now. I know you guys are probably getting tired of me reading these ghost books, but don't worry. Once I'm done reading them, I won't read any more ghost stories again unless I get more books. But anyway, that's going to be it for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications for more ghost stories like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Corner channel. I'm Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. Sayonara, everybody.